All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're unraveling an incident that is so completely bizarre, so incredibly cinematic, it literally tore apart a quiet, picturesque New England coastal town. I mean, picture this. You have the most idyllic, picture-perfect Halloween evening you could possibly imagine, right? And then suddenly it's just violently interrupted by a catastrophic, blockbuster movie-level disaster. We're diving deep into the deluge at Waterhouse, breaking down the evidence, the wild eyewitness accounts, and of course, the shadowy figure right at the center of the whole shebang.
But before we try to reconstruct the absolute chaos of that October 31st, let's just ground ourselves with our word of the day here. Deluge, meaning a severe flood or a sudden heavy downpour. It sounds almost biblical, doesn't it? Well, to really wrap our heads around how this utterly unnatural disaster happened, we actually need to rewind our investigation to the very quiet, almost suffocatingly normal beginnings of this neighborhood.
I really want to hook you with this specific quote straight from our source material. Still waters run deep, they say. And Mr. Water had been so still up there, someone should have known. It's incredibly eerie, right? But it perfectly establishes this lurking mystery behind a totally quiet facade. We're basically looking at a textbook scenario where all the warning signs were entirely ignored, mainly because they were just disguised as, everyday suburban insulation.
Okay, part 1, the idyllic coastal suburb.
So this wasn't just any regular town. This was a seaside slice of pure, family-friendly suburbia. The kind of place where artists literally travel for miles just to paint the rocky coastline and the local lighthouse. A super tight-knit community full of content families and retirees. But man, the contrast between the property's previous homeowners and the new guy was night and day. The Packers were your quintessential wholesome neighbors. They grew basil, fed hummingbirds, handed out peppermint patties to the neighborhood kids, and then they eventually retired to Florida. But the new buyer, the guy everyone just came to know as Mr. Water, he rolls in with unlabeled boxes, immediately hangs these thick, grommeted sound blankets over his front windows to block out the light, and snooping eyes obviously, and basically survives entirely on Chinese takeout. He even left neighborly welcome gifts totally untouched on his front porch. To the community, the guy was an absolute ghost.
Moving on to part 2, the Hollywood recluse.
Well, nature abhors a vacuum, right? And in a small town, gossip fills the void of silence incredibly fast. The neighborhood was practically desperate to know who this shadowy guy in the tinted glasses actually was. Which brings us to the town's resident busybody, Virginia. She starts spreading these wildly specific rumors claiming he was this big Hollywood guy, an Oscar-winning special effects master who got unceremoniously fired and essentially blacklisted by the studios. The rumor mill decided he retreated to this sleepy New England town simply because it, quote, reminded him of a movie. Now, whether any of that was true or not, the town eventually kind of just got bored of the mystery and went back to their own lives as summer slowly faded into autumn.
Which brings us to part 3, the Halloween setup.
Fast forward to October. The source actually describes the atmosphere as candy apple thick with anticipation. This whole town absolutely lived for Halloween. They treated it like the crowning event of the entire year. The local arts committee even convinced the lighthouse keepers to slap an orange film over the bulb to cast this massive spooky glow across the whole town. You add morning school parades, designated pizza houses, one family literally built a mud-run obstacle course right on their front lawn, and the reeds were pumping out fog made from dry ice. Kids are running around everywhere in those giant inflatable costumes and flammable princess dresses. I mean, it was an absolute candy-coated Americana dream.
But amidst all those inflatable spiders and store-bought skeletons, Mr. Water did exactly one thing to his property. He wrapped it in shiny caution tape. That is literally it. But because of all those lingering Hollywood rumors, the local kids were absolutely convinced he was building some spectacular professional-grade haunted house. They just assumed the caution tape was layer 1 of this masterfully crafted illusion.
All right, part 4, the first explosion.
So at long last, dusk falls. The streets are completely packed, trick-or-treating is in full swing. Eventually, this brave kid named Colby Jenkins, dressed as a ninja by the way, walks up to this super imposing Waterhouse. He's flanked by this little huddle of terrified peers, and he pushes the doorbell. Now, our source outlines this incredibly fascinating motif about the engineering of a true scare. Basically, if you want to terrify someone, you can't just rely on one jump scare. Colby's ring immediately sets off a massive blast. We're talking a boom so powerful it shattered the house's windows, shook the literal ground, and set off car alarms up and down the street. But step 1, that only creates doubt.
People were just confused. Was it a special effect? A hissing pipe? Dads are running up to the house to check on their kids, only to see water violently forcing its way out through the front screen door.
Part 5. The Man-Made Deluge.
Because you see, you need step 2. You need a second, extraordinary surprise to just completely break the dam of uncertainty. And that is exactly what happened. A second, massive explosion quaked right beneath the street, shaking the trees and violently blowing out parts of the Waterhouse itself. Eyewitness Jamie Murphy gave this breathless, totally panic-stricken account that really captures the chaos perfectly. Quote, "It literally reminded me of Universal Studios, that flood, right? And then the second bomb happened, and our street was bleep drowning." Guys, this wasn't a broken water main. This was a supercharged, unstoppable, torrential wave bursting out of the house and just swallowing the entire street in seconds.
And to put that into perspective, the escalation here was insanely fast. From the totally innocent start of trick-or-treating at 6 p.m., it took just an hour and a half for that first ground-shaking explosion, followed just 10 minutes later by the dam-breaking second blast. By 8 p.m., the neighborhood was in a full-blown deluge. The streetlights and holiday decorations flickered and died, plunging this rushing, freezing water into total darkness, illuminated only by the sweeping orange beam of that distant lighthouse.
But what really stands out amidst all this terrifying destruction is honestly the sheer dark comedy of it all. The current was so incredibly strong, it immediately swept away all the lightest synthetic stuff first: plastic pumpkins, candy buckets, fairy wands. Terrifyingly, the current actually caught the kids wearing those bulky, inflatable costumes, turning them into little bobbers. The rushing water mixed with the reeds' dry ice, creating this super mystical fog right over the floodwaters. And as the water actually breached the homes themselves, mundane items like pizza boxes floated out into the street. Alongside, well, as our source explicitly notes, some highly intimate, very buoyant items suddenly freed from neighbor Virginia's bedside nightstand drawer.
Now, given the sheer, ridiculous volume of water, which, by the way, was pulled directly from the sea using re-rigged pipes and pumps hidden beneath the house, the property damage was astronomical. Power was totally out, homes were wrecked, and a few neighbors literally had to permanently relocate. The hospital even had to take in several of the smaller kids to monitor them for secondary drowning. Yet, miraculously, the number of deaths from this completely unnatural disaster? 0. Exactly 0.
Which, of course, leads us with the ultimate question. Who actually caused this? And in the pitch-black chaos of a flooded, powerless street, who actually saw the truth of what went down?
Part 6. The Rooftop Eyewitness.
Okay, this is where the source material takes a seriously fascinating twist. So throughout this whole explainer, we've relied on the collective experiences of the neighborhood on the ground. But there was one eyewitness who had a bird's-eye view of the entire catastrophe, a narrator sitting on the roof directly across the street. They admitted they liked to, get a little high and watch the lighthouse to quiet their mind, and from that specific vantage point, they saw something truly bizarre. Mr. Water wasn't trapped inside his flooding house. No, he was standing up on his own roof. Our eyewitness watched this supposed Hollywood SFX master manually pull a rigged lever connected down to his covered pool. He just stood up there, waiting for the water to drop, watching his final, redemptive blockbuster action sequence tear the block apart. He didn't even film it. He just watched his masterpiece with his naked eyes, wearing, of all things, a red clown nose, before slipping away through a secret door hidden in his hedges. But I want to leave you with the narrator's final, chilling thought here. When they were asked if the SFX master saw them watching from across the street, the narrator just replies, "He didn't see me. Nobody saw me. I was a ghost." It completely breaks the fourth wall. Was our eyewitness just highly intoxicated and quietly unnoticed in the shadows? Or was the silent observer on the roof something far spookier, fitting for a Halloween night? I'll let you be the judge of that. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I will see you on the next explainer.